All right, let's get started. We're about just after 6:30, so we'll get going. My name is John Westra. I'm the director of the Counseling Center at Penn High School. We want to welcome you tonight to our financial aid night. We're excited you're here. We want to give some great information. Hopefully, have you leave today feeling good about where you go from here, and hopefully we can address questions and again work through the evening and make sure it's worth your time. There we go. So the kind of an agenda for tonight, our focus is going to be on financial aid, the FAFSA, and some of the side, of that process with regard to the colleges. I'm going to spend some time here at the beginning just reviewing some scholarship information, specifically talking about a lot of the things that come through Penn High School, and we want to make sure again that students are aware of some of those resources. We'll focus on that to start, and then we have a representative from Indiana University South Bend who's going to spend some time talking about the FAFSA and that financial aid process and what that really looks like. And so we want that to be the bulk of the presentation because that's probably the most unknown from the standpoint of the high school student and parent. So when we look at at scholarships, one thing that I just did was I want to put a few thoughts out there, kind of to get you guys thinking, and something that these things kind of came to mind immediately when I was thinking about. We can talk about the resources and things that go with scholarship. That's important. Obviously, we'll get to that in a second. But I also wanted to put some things out there for you to think about, and for your student to think about as they look at the scholarship process and the things that will take place over the next several months. Again, these are kind of the things that came to mind. One thing that we often hear from students is, there might be a scholarship that's $250 or $500, and someone might say, I'm not going to apply for that. That's not worth my time. It's not enough money. Well, we would disagree majorly, right? We think every amount of money, $100, $10, whatever it is worth the application process. It's worth the time. So, we try to get that message out as much as we possibly can. We want students to apply for as many scholarships as possible, and it doesn't matter how much. It doesn't matter the amount. We want you to apply because in the end, it adds up. And so if you can get $100 here, $500 here, $1,000, we're looking at significant scholarship money. So that's always a thought that we want to put out there because, again, that comes up. And this kind of relates to it, the second bullet point there. A lot of times when you complete an application for a scholarship, you've done a lot of the things already that you might need to do for some other scholarships. You might have created the essay. You might have gone through an application process, so you've had to collect information. You'll probably use that same information on another application. You've probably collected letters of recommendation. Again, these are things that you don't have to do multiple times. If you do it once, you have the information in a central place. You can reapply to a lot of different scholarships. So another thought, we want to make sure students are applying to as many as they can because once you do it that first time, you likely have a lot of the information you need to apply for other scholarships. The scholarship process, when we have the college information night that we had back in September, one thing we talked about was researching and the application process, but we also talked about scholarships, and that we want to make sure we mention that again tonight. The process in which we look at collecting scholarships, it doesn't just start in the senior year. That's when most of the application stuff goes. That's where we have to collect the information, and that's when a lot of the scholarships are going to be available. But the research can start early on, right? You can start looking at those things well in advance. So you can kind of plan out the scholarships that you might meet the criteria for, your students meet the criteria for, really set a schedule for which you can take that into your senior year and know exactly what you want to do, when you're going to apply for certain scholarships, when they're due, all that. And we're going to talk about a tool that you can use as a Penn High School student to do that. So again, another thought, start that process early, even though you might not be able to apply right away. And then the last thing, just really want to emphasize the idea, again, get as much of that gift aid, that scholarship money that you can. That's the stuff we want to build, that financial aid, award letter. When we talk about that, we want as much of it to be gift aid, stuff that you don't have to pay back, that doesn't have strings attached. That's how we want to set students up, so they have as much of that as they possibly can. And then when we talk about financial aid, how do we fill in the gaps? How do we fill in the rest of that college cost? So looking at some resources, these are some things that we try to advertise and talk to our students about as much as we can, whether it be a group presentation, whether it be individually, putting information on social media. We're going to try to get this information out as much as we can. So the one item that I just referenced a bit ago with regard to planning is the scholarship timeline. So that's a document we keep on the Penn High School website. If you look under your departments and then counseling in the scholarship section, you can click on the scholarship timeline. It's a 8-page document. It includes any scholarship information for any scholarship that we get from year to year. It includes when it's usually advertised, when it's usually due, the criteria for that scholarship, how to access the application. If it's online, there's a link. If it's a paper application, again, where it comes from, all that, all the amounts, it's all loaded into that document. So sometimes it's kind of confusing because it might say, this is 2017-18 information. That's okay, because again, that's from the previous year. So we take the information that we had from last year, again, when we got the information, when it was due, all that stuff, and we put it in the document for you to access so you can estimate, give or take, again, what we, a day or a week or whatever it might be, so you can plan and estimate when it's going to be due the next year. So don't let that throw you off. That information is pretty accurate. Again, things change over the course of a year or two, depending on when it's been offered. So, not everything is an exact science, but we try to give you as much information we can so you can plan ahead. We'll show you a little screenshot of the website so you can kind of see what it looks like, but that's a great tool. The CCRC, that's our physical space. It's connected to the counseling office. You can access it from there, and then we have another entrance to the back of that room. That's where a lot of our college information is kept. So it's reduced in size a little bit now because so much information is digital. We don't have to have all the brochures and pamphlets, things like that. But that's where all of our scholarship information is going to be located. If there's an information packet, if there's an application, it's going to be located in that room. So we want to make sure that students are aware of that. They're checking that out, once or twice, once every week, once every couple weeks. Get in there, see if there's anything new. If you're checking the updates and you're going to go back in and check and get the application itself, that's where we want students to go and check that. The Penn Scholarship Twitter feed is a great resource. That is going to be where we put our most up-to-date information. So if we have any new scholarships to advertise, if we have reminders for deadlines, things like that, we will post all that information through that Twitter feed and make it available. So that's a great follow if you want to follow it so you can see it as it comes, or obviously if you go back in and take a look at it later, it's a great resource for you to get that information. So we recommend following that. And then the Kingsman Nation document is also a place where we put scholarship information. So that's sent out weekly. Mr. Gallagher sends that out through his weekly email. It's available for parents and students. And so we put information in there for scholarships as well. So another document that you can use to keep track of that information. So again, right there, 4 things that we have very prominently advertised. You can collect scholarship information. And this is stuff that connects directly back to Penn High School. When you look at the other side of the screen, what we're talking about here, this is information that's kind of outside the walls of Penn High School. So the great thing for our students is that we get a lot of scholarship information. We have a lot of scholarships that we advertise from year to year. I think year to year we have, our seniors are earning between $8 and $9 million in scholarship. It doesn't all come from Penn High School, certainly, but there are a lot of scholarships that we advertise that students can connect with to get to that total. So, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to collect that money and information when you look through those processes. But these ones that we have listed here on your left, my right, these are some processes that you can go through to get information for scholarships, again, outside the wall. So one thing that you'll see here when you apply to colleges, specifically by a certain deadline, there's a certain amount of money that they will allocate for merit-based aid. So if we use a lot of schools, they usually use November 1st as that deadline. If you have all your application materials in, if you meet certain criteria, there's a good chance that you might be able to qualify for merit-based aid, a specific amount of money that you could earn each year for that student. So, and if Corey has information to talk about there, she can talk about that specifically, IUSB, but that's a great opportunity for scholarship right there. Colleges will have scholarship pages. They will have parts of their website dedicated just for scholarship. It's by program, it's by grade level, in-state, out-of-state. There are a lot of different things that you can do at the college itself. Once you're accepted, once you know where you want to go, you can start applying for the scholarships at that specific university and see if you qualify for those as well. So another great resource. And then you can look at some websites and things like that kind of broaden your search. So some of the scholarships, again, that are located at Penn High School or maybe at the college that the students are looking at, but you can also look, beyond that. So we have a couple of websites listed up here that are great, credible websites that you can use to really broaden your search for scholarship information and really expand and maybe connect with scholarships that are unique to you. unique to your family, backgrounds, things like that maybe wouldn't be connected to Penn High School. So I've listed a few there. I'll show you a screenshot of one of those so you can kind of get a feel for what it looks like just here in a second. And then the last thing we mention a lot with our students are just those local scholarships that are connected to like a church or a place of employment for a parent. Those are sometimes not advertised at all. Maybe it's just advertised within the organization. So we want to make sure that parents and students alike are always thinking about that. They're always looking for those opportunities, keeping an ear open and their eyes open for those opportunities as they come, because those are scholarships, again, that don't get some of the advertisement that some others do, and that's a great way to kind of swoop in there and get a scholarship. So, again, those are several options. We have all these. We actually have all these on a document listed on the website, so you can reference those at a later date. But these are what we're constantly talking about with our students. So here's a screenshot. I went to the Penn High School website. Again, it's under departments, counseling, and under scholarships. That's the scholarship timeline. So it's a PDF document. Again, it's 28 pages. So when you get on there, you can go through, you can look, I think it's alphabetically, and figure out all the scholarships that we would normally advertise, when it's due, put it on a calendar. So you know exactly when this scholarship, well, I guess that's approximately when that scholarship is going to be advertised, approximately when it's going to be due. You can really plan ahead for your students so they know, when to stop into the CCRC, when they have to have the resources by, and again, be good planners with regard to getting that information in. Here's a website. We pulled it from IUSB. So again, I just went on the IUSB website, looked in a couple different places, and I was able to find their scholarship page. And so it's very similar to most schools. If you get on there, you can find information about scholarships that they offer for their incoming freshmen, if it's a transfer student. A lot of different opportunities for students that are attending their university to apply and be considered for scholarships. And again, there are a lot of different options. Some of them are very selective. Some of them are based off of merit. Some of them are based off of need. But it's about the application and getting in there and getting the information. That's the important part. Here, what we just have listed, this again is a scholarship, a search engine, a tool that you can use to broaden your search. So this is through the Big Future portion of the College Board website. So again, just a couple of clicks. I went into the collegeboard.org website. We went to scholarship information or grants and scholarships, and then it took me to the Big Future website. And again, I was right there able to get to a search engine. You can broaden your search here. You can find things that are unique to you. Again, you can find things that are nationwide, scholarships that you can connect with that aren't in the area. So I wanted you to kind of have an opportunity to kind of see that those resources are there. Again, it's really just a few clicks. And with the technology with Google nowadays, you can really have access to that very quickly. One thing that we always mention to students, and obviously we can mention it tonight, is so when you're looking at these kind of situations or scholarships in general, you want to make sure you're not giving away, some of that personal information. Make sure you're not giving away maybe some of that financial information, because there are places that will help you search for scholarships, but they might charge you for it. So make sure you're informed about that. Not saying you can't do it, just make sure that you're informed that if you're doing that you make sure it's a credible source. So that's the portion of the evening that I wanted to focus on. And then Corey from IUSB is going to talk about financial aid. Were there any questions about some of those slides or resources that we posted out there before we move on to the financial aid portion? Okay. If you think of some, don't hesitate to stop us, or again, you can see us at the end and we'll try to answer those questions individually. So Corey Long is with us tonight. She's from Indiana University South Bend. She's a Penn graduate, so we're excited to have her back in Penn High School and excited to have her share information about the financial aid process through the eyes of someone at Indiana University South Bend. Thanks.
All right, like you said, I don't know if you can hear me. Like you said, my name is Corey. I am a graduate from here at Penn High School. Woo, woo. I know this can be a very daunting subject for a lot of people, so trust me, ask me questions along the way. I've sat in those seats. I've first-generation college student here, so it was all new to me. So there are 3 types of financial aid out there. First is going to go ahead and be gift aid. That's the scholarships, grants, that free money that you don't have to pay back. So that's what everyone wants. So that's what we're going to really work hard to get. Then there's borrowed aid. That's going to be loans. So there are several different types of loans. So first is going to be a subsidized loan. So that loan is in the student's name. They apply for that loan when they fill out the FAFSA. Parents, you are not a co-signer on that loan, is solely in the student's name. What's nice about a subsidized loan is I kind of think of it like subsidized housing. The government is helping you while you are in school. So while you're in school, the government's paying the interest on that loan. Then there's an unsubsidized loan. This is also only in the student's name, also applied for when you complete the FAFSA. Now the difference with this type of loan is while you are in school, it starts to accrue interest from day one. And then there's a parent loan or a parent plus loan. So we push for that loan first over a private loan because it is also through the federal government, just like the student's loans, and it tends to be more flexible if you need to go that route and help your student out. And then there's earned aid or work study. So work study is also applied for through the FAFSA. It is funds from the federal government that a student can earn while on campus. So what's nice about working a work study job, as I did it while in college, is they limit the hours you work, so normally about 20 hours a week, and they tend to have higher minimum wages. So for example, IU South Bend's minimum wage for a student worker is $10.15 an hour. So you're making decent money, and you know everyone you're working for knows school is the #1 priority. So if you've got a big test coming up, something going on, they tend to be very flexible and say, go focus on school. So the free application for federal student aid, or the FAFSA, yes, it can seem very daunting to sit down and fill out this application. I filled it out this year. It took me about 10 minutes. So it's pretty simple now. You can start beginning October 1st, file it for next fall. And you have to have it filed by April 15th. If you've got a student who's a 21st century or plans on having any state aid at all, it has to be filed by the April 15th deadline. And then it's changed in the past couple years. So you used to use tax information from last year, but now you're going to use tax information from 2 years ago. So when you sit down to file this FAFSA, it's going to be looking at 2017 tax information. Now you will have the ability to link and pull that income information from the IRS. It's called the Data Retrieval Tool, or DRT. We recommend that you do the DRT. Couple reasons. One, the IRS has already verified your information for us. If you don't do it, you're more likely to be selected for a process called verification. In that process, we have to get you to request tax documents from the IRS. You won't have them at home, I promise you. And you have to get them to us, otherwise we can't award financial aid. So we really recommend you use that tool to kind of help limit the number of people selected for that process. And then also you're going to have to file every single year. So you'll file for your freshman year in college, your junior year in college, every single year. Now, FAFSA.gov is the website you go to. If you've gone to a website where it asks you to put a credit card in, back out. You are at the wrong website. Another thing that's changed recently is now you have to have an FSA ID, or a Federal Student Aid ID. This is going to be your username and your passphrase for the website. Now keep in mind, when you enter this information, you create that, it is going to go ahead and be sent out to the Social Security Administration to verify who you are. If you're saying, I'm Corey Long and this is my social, they're going to say, yes, you are who you are, but that can take up to 3 days. So if you go in and try to sign that FAFSA right away and it doesn't work, step out of it for a couple days. You'll get an email when that has been verified by the Social Security Administration. Now, both the student and the parent will need this FSA ID. You both have to sign the FAFSA. Don't use the same email address, because if you use the same email address, it is a nightmare to pull them apart. If one of you needs to reset a password, it's linking through that email, and it's not going to work, and we have to contact them. Also, students, don't use your high school email. You will eventually lose access to that, and if you have to reset that during your senior year of college, you have no access to that email anymore. You'll also have the option to put in a phone number. We really recommend that route because that is going to be the quickest route. If you need to go ahead and retrieve any data, they can just shoot you a text real quick and you can verify who you are. New this year, the FAFSA is available on an app. That is how I filed my FAFSA this year. Great, super easy. Now, mom and dad, if you're like, I am not downloading an app, I'm not doing it that way, the student can start their portion on an app, and when they complete their portion, you can pick up and finish it online. It's a back and forth, easy process. So it's really nice because it's right there at the fingertips, and students can do it that way. A couple pictures being taken, I'll wait. So, big question, and I handle this in our office a lot. is dependency status. Do I have to put my parents' information on the FAFSA? Well, the FAFSA asks 10 questions to determine if a student is independent or dependent. So basically, until a student is 24, they have to put parent information on the FAFSA. That's not something I get to decide, it's federal government. Even if the student moves out, goes to school in Colorado, and they don't live with you and you don't claim them on taxes, doesn't matter. Basically, until the age of 24, parent data is required on the FAFSA. Now, one I've been seeing a lot of mistakes on this year is there are more questions. You can kind of see emancipated minor at the bottom. I don't know where they went. Two of them, emancipated minor and legal guardianship. Just because you turned 18 does not make you an emancipated minor. That's been a lot of confusion. And then, yes, mom and dad are your legal guardians, but no. Are you in someone else's guardianship? Do you have a court order issuing you into legal guardianship? So unless you have some type of court order backing either one of those, the answers are no. So if the household is a separated household, which parent do I use? So you're going to use the custodial parent. If it's a 50-50 household, who do you live with the most? So if that custodial parent has remarried, you have to include step-parent data. Even if you didn't file taxes together in that tax year, they're looking at who's in the household now. Parents, keep in mind that just by providing this data, signing the FAFSA, you're not co-signing on their loans, you're not assuming responsibility for the bill, any of that. It's just so the government can collect demographic and financial data to determine what the student can be awarded. So, if you need help filling out the FAFSA, there are national events every single year. We are hosting on the IU South Bend campus. It's called College Goals Sunday. So it's 2 to 4. What's nice about going to these events is if you go and fill out your FAFSA at this event, even if you don't need help, you're entered into a $1,000 scholarship drawing. So you can go every single year while you're in college, go in, sit down, fill it out, not talk to anybody, still be entered into this scholarship drawing. So some tools you want to have handy when it goes to file the FAFSA. First is going to be your social security number. Be careful, do not flip numbers when you type it in, because if you flip some numbers, I tend to do it, happens, we can't pull in your FAFSA because we're not linking to who we think we're linking to. So you'll have to go in and fix that. Make sure to have your tax returns, your W-2s. Like I said, the IRS will pull in your adjusted gross income and taxes, but it will not pull in individual parent income. So make sure, parents, you have your W-2s and you know how much you earned. Also have your bank statements and records of accounts. So I'm not going to ask for a year's worth of bank statements or anything. We just want a snapshot of that day when you go to file your taxes. What do you have in investments? What's in your bank account right now? I don't need records of that. Untaxed income, and then that FSA ID. So if you know that you're going to a specific event to file the FAFSA, create that FSA ID a couple days ahead of time. Like I said, it can take up to 3 days for them to verify who you are, and if you're coming to an event, you'd like to be able to sign and submit that FAFSA. So like I said, the social security number is going to be one of the big mistakes made on the FAFSA. Also, double check your name. If your legal name is Jonathan Brown, don't put John Brown. Put what is on your social security card. It's going to be, a lot of people exclude step parents, and if you're caught, we have to go in and add it. Income, household size. So just make sure, along the way, there are help buttons in the FAFSA. It's designed to be very user-friendly and help you. If you don't know, stop, click on that. If you still don't know, call. It's any financial aid office at any college can really walk you through what you're looking at. So this is kind of the process for the FAFSA every single year. So you're going to go ahead and submit the FAFSA. The FAFSA then sends that to the Department of Education. So the Department of Education is going to run you through some checks. They're going to double check Social Security Administration. They're going to double check if you mark the veteran, if you're really in the VA system, the Department of Homeland Security. They're going to make sure you are who you say you are. From there, they're going to send out 2 reports, one to the student and one to the school. So for the one with the student, it does not come in the mail. Not anymore. It's going to go directly to that student email. So parents, if you want to look at it, you're going to have to ask your student to pull it up from that email. So what the school does, once they've got that, they go ahead and determine your eligibility. We can take that FAFSA and say, okay, this is the numbers we've got based on our school. This is what you're eligible for in financial aid. And we send you that award letter. I'm going to kind of delve into that a little deeper in a few slides, but that you have to do that every single year to be awarded every single year. So to kind of delve into that award letter a little bit, this is some common terms you'll want to learn that are going to be thrown around in a financial aid office. So the first is cost of attendance. So the cost of attendance is not the bill. Do not think it is the bill when you see that, because most award letters will have listed on there the cost of attendance. What that is every school has to create a budget, what we're able to award up to in terms of financial aid. So cost of attendance is going to include tuition fees, but it's also going to include room and board, transportation, what we think you're going to spend in books, toilet paper, supplies, things like that. So when you filled out your FAFSA, it calculated what is called an expected family contribution, what they say in an ideal world you could pay out of pocket for school. So your cost of attendance will vary from school to school, but that EFC is associated with you. It will not change because you don't change from school to school. And from there, we can calculate your financial need. So we're going to take that cost of attendance, subtract out what they say you could pay out of pocket, and they determine that need. So that's where the government is going to say, this is the students who are eligible for grants. These are the students who are eligible for the subsidized loans, things like that. So for example, at IU South Bend, for this year, a cost of attendance is $21,000, but the bill, tuition and mandatory fees, is $7,300. So like I said, when you see that cost of attendance, don't think that's the bill, because that is a big difference from one to the other. So a couple things to keep in mind. So there are two offices that get confused multiple times a day. So first is the bursar's office, or the cashier's office. That is the office that's going to issue the bill. That is the office that's going to take the financial aid and credit it to the bill, and they're going to collect payments from you if payments are needed. And then there's the financial aid office. We are the ones who process the FAFSA and determine what you're eligible for, and we also process scholarships and send them over to the bursar's office. One thing to keep in mind is aid is dynamic and it can change. So, like I said earlier, students can be selected for a process called verification. So schools are going to try and send you your award letters as soon as they can because they want you to start thinking about that school. Well, if you're selected for verification and we require tax documents and we determine that your FAFSA was filled out wrong, you used 2015 instead of 2017, we have to go in and fix that. And that can affect your EFC, and in turn affect that award letter. So keep in mind, if there's things like that going on, it may change your award and your eligibility. And then aid is limited. It can't be a student forever. You can't receive aid forever, no matter how much you want to keep going to school. So one thing is the Pell Grant. That is from the federal government. So they track it in percentages, so it's 600% or 12 full-time semesters of Pell. And then state awards, like 21st Century, O'Bannon. Those are 8 full-time semesters or 4 years of state awards. Now keep in mind, state awards require that a student is full-time. So if your student is eligible for some type of state grant, make sure to look into what those renewal requirements are for those state awards and look into what enrollment requirements are there for those state awards. And then loans. So federal government says they don't care about the financial need when it comes to the loans right now. They say that an incoming dependent freshman, no matter if they go to Ivy Tech or if they go to Notre Dame, they get $5,500 in student loans. So it may change if you have subsidized or unsubsidized loans, but it is $5,500. So that's one thing you really want to apply for scholarships if you're going somewhere that's just not going to cut it. So you got to look into those scholarship opportunities. So This screen is a little IU South Bend specific. So we really push for 15 credit hours per semester. That is what we've determined is the sweet spot to graduate in 4 years. You know, if you graduate in 4 years from college, you have less debt, you have less interest accruing, and you can get out there and start repaying that quicker. One thing that is not going to change from school to school, though, is required classes for financial aid. So if a student loves taking art classes, but they're not an art major and they're just taking them for fun and they don't count towards anything, financial aid is not going to pay for it. So they have to make sure that it fits somewhere into their degree map, that these classes are counting towards their degree. Student loans require a half-time enrollment. So if you just go in and take one class, it's not going to cut it. You have to make sure you're in at least 6 credit hours to be eligible for student loans. So every single school that you're able to receive federal aid from has to participate in what's called Satisfactory Academic Progress, or SAP. So SAP requirements are going to be changed from school to school, but we monitor 3 components. First, we're going to monitor a student's GPA, so they have to make sure they're succeeding. We're also going to monitor their completion rate, so they can't fail all their classes, they can't withdraw from all their classes halfway through. So we're going to make sure they're actually completing their courses they sign up for. And then we're going to monitor their pace, or how long it takes them to earn their degree. Now, if a student fails to meet any of these SAP components, they are ineligible for financial aid. That's why I bring it up, to make sure that when you go in your first year, I know high school is easy, college is going to be easy. No, it's not. It's a very different game. So make sure you are prepared and you're focusing and studying to make sure you meet these components. And then FERPA, the Family and Educational Rights and Privacy Act, basically HIPAA for school. So Mom, Dad, I know how much you love helping your kids, but once they start classes, I cannot talk to you unless they grant you access. So I've got a mom who's still trying to contact me, and it's October, and I'm like, I can't do it. I can't help you. So make sure your student grants you access. Talk to them. Make sure they're on the same page. If Mom and Dad are paying the bill, they want to see what your grades are. They want to be able to talk about financial aid. So make sure they grant that access. Every school is going to have their own process for that. So what can you be doing right now? So visit schools. That is what made my decision easy. I went and saw a campus and said, I love it here, and I did not love the campus of another place. So go ahead and check them out, look at them. Start applying for admissions. Some schools are going to have requirements. For example, IU South Bend requires that you are an admitted student before you can access our online scholarship application. So we do have scholarships out there, but you have to be admitted. So look into what those schools' requirements are. Know the estimated total cost. Like I said, you only get so much in loans. You know what the school's gonna cost, so what's your game plan? Figure it out before classes start. Are you gonna look into private loans, parent loans? Are you gonna apply to as many scholarships as you can and hope you get them? So look into that and have a game plan for every year. And know the day you must confirm admissions. So, for example, if you do not confirm by May 1st for IU South Bend, you lose out on any scholarship we awarded you. So you have to look into what those requirements are. Now, one thing to keep in mind, some schools require a deposit with their admission, where you go in and they say, okay, you're confirming admissions, you need to put $100 down. IU South Bend does not require that. So if you confirm admissions, lock in those scholarships, but then decide in August, I'm not ready, there's no penalty. Some schools, there are penalties. You may lose out on that deposit. So definitely talk to the schools you're interested in and what their process is for that. Stay in touch with your chosen school. So from the second a student is admitted, they're going to have a student email. So that is how the school is going to start reaching out to that student saying, these are the documents we need. These are the deadlines that are coming up. This is what you need to do. So make sure you get into the habit of checking that school's email. And then definitely file that FAFSA every single year. Now, some schools require that you file earlier because there are some need-based programs that the earlier you file, the more you're up in line for those programs. So definitely file it earlier rather than later. Okay. Questions? I promise I'm not scary. If you have Social Security that is some type, it's not like SSI, SSD, but there are untaxed versions of that. You would know if you have untaxed income. It tends to fall on your tax return.
I see another hand. Kurt, do you have a question?
I can't see. Yes. So if it is truly 50-50 that the student is one house over between the two, it is going to be the parent that financially provides more. Yes. Correct. So the FAFSA is used for federal loans and grants, state grants. Some scholarships require that it's on file. Some schools require that you file it. We don't require it, but we strongly recommend it because some scholarships are need-based, and that need is determined on that FAFSA. I saw two hands come up at once, so we're going to go this way, this way. Yes. Yeah. So when it asks for tax information, it's going to specify in 2017. But then when it asks about like number of people in the household, it's asking about currently. So it will use wording currently. How many people are in your household? Currently this, in 2017. So they're very clear in their wording what year you're looking at. Yes. Yes, so if you have multiple children, the parent will only have one FSA ID. Now, after you guys sign that FAFSA, it will give you as a parent an option. Hey, are you filling out another FAFSA? Do you want to transfer all of this information you put in to another student's FAFSA? So you have the option, just instead of retyping it all over again, just transfer it to your second child's FAFSA. Yep, it's after you sign is when you'll have the ability to transfer that data to the next child. Yes. Yeah, and that's one of those when you click on help, it's here's some information. If you still don't understand, here's an 800 number. Yes. Mhm. It does student first and then parent, but a parent can start and come in and do their part. Now, in past, Mhm. There's a button that says I did not file. I will. Okay, we can take a look at that because I'm pretty sure there is. Yeah, it's you might have to go back a couple questions because it says there has to be the option for that because most students don't file taxes. So one thing that has changed from the last year's FAFSA to this FAFSA is that they tried to make it very clear that you were in the student section and had one color and it said student and it was pink. And when you moved to parent, it said parent and it was green. Now it's all the same color, so they've made it a little confusing. So make sure when you're in there, you're looking, okay, I'm in the student section, I'm filling out the student data. I'm in the parent section, I'm filling out the parent data. Yes.
You can show them up here, but College Goal Sunday does have a website as well.
Yes.
You can visit that, and it shows all the sites, all the locations, the dates, and it lists all that information out for you that way too.
Yeah, and it happens every single year. So with IU South Bend, we hold it on our main campus across from John Adams, or we also hold it down at the Elkhart campus because we have a Elkhart campus that you're able to go to complete it as well. Yes. Mhm. You should not have to make a new one. Now, if you haven't done it for a couple years and you had a PIN several years ago, that is different. But if you've created an FSA ID within the past few years, you should be able to use that same one. Yes. Yeah, so if your tax information has drastically changed, say someone's lost a job or something like that, you still fill out the FAFSA based on that tax year, but you're going to contact the school. The school's going to have their own appeal process, and that administrator within the school will go in and make those changes. So if something has happened or going on, ask the school what their process is. Yeah, so you can list up to 10 schools on the FAFSA. So list everyone you're interested in, but say you list 8 and you decide, oh, there's one more I want to go in and add, or you know you made an error on the FAFSA, you can go in and make corrections and submit those additional corrections. Now make sure if you go in on that page, you add a school code, you go back to that last page and you re-sign and submit, because if you don't do that, it will never be sent to the school. Mhm. Federal loans. So these are specifically loans. Yeah, so on top of that, you can still receive Pell Grants, you could still receive state grants, you can still receive scholarships, but the federal government says in their loans, this is what a student can receive. Yeah, and so that's right above. So the Pell Grant, um, they've got limits. The O'Bannon 21st, they have limits. Now, where that cost of attendance comes into play, we can't award over that cost of attendance. So say your student gets, how we said $21,000 was of our cost of attendance. If your student gets a $21,000 scholarship for IU South Bend, they're not even going to be offered loans because everything should be covered under that branch of a cost of attendance because our bill was only 73. So your student's getting a hefty refund. So that's where that comes into play. So when you fill out the FAFSA, the last page is going to say, this is what we estimate you may be eligible for. And then that school, when they process it and take a look at everything, they're going to send that student an email or a physical letter saying, this is what we think you're eligible for. Any other questions? Yeah, this is the federal direct loan. So it is this, yes, Stafford Loans. So when you fill out the FAFSA, you can end up with one of 4 loan providers. I don't know how they pick who you get. They try really hard to put you with the same company every year. Every once in a while, there's a one-off that you have one loan floating off with someone else. But they try to get you through the same company.
Well, if we don't have any more questions, we can, if Corey's willing, maybe hang out for a couple minutes if there's individual questions that come up. But we just want to thank you for coming out tonight. That's all we have. We're going to put this information, the PowerPoint, and also we're recording tonight's presentation. We're going to put that on the website. So if you have questions later on and you want to reference the presentation and or the questions asked, we're going to have that on the website as well. So again, thank you for coming. Have a great night.